So when we talk about digital transformation through Helix ITSM, just want to level set on the term Helix. When BMC talks about Helix, they're talking about things that are going to be hosted in the cloud. That can be the BMC data center. It could be BMC's AWS instance or BMC's Azure instance. They also have a data center that is FedRAMP certified. So when we talk Helix, we're talking about in the cloud, and that's part of the digital transformation, right? If you go onto Wikipedia and you look up digital transformation, you get this nice definition, really focused on technology, saying, being able to solve problems, doing cloud-based services because they can do the upgrades and fixes and things, and you can focus on doing what you need to do. That's a Wikipedia definition, but quite frankly, it's a little boring, right? It's focused in on technology. I think most of us know that digital transformation is not just technology. So, well, look, my next slide. It's not just about technology. So these are some of the things that you need to look at when you start to do a digital transformation. Are the leadership principles or leadership philosophies really driving the organization? Or are things being done in silos? People are doing things on their own, thinking that they know the direction, but not really aiming toward the company real goals. So you need good governance, good leadership to set the direction that everybody should be going. People and operations, we always say it's not just software, it's people and processes. You've got to get people involved, you've got to get people on board, you've got to get people talking to each other. You need to define your roles appropriately, avoid redundancies, all those kinds of things as well. Customer experience is a big one because it's not just about IT sitting in a back room transforming itself. It'd be a lot easier if we did that. But it's about making sure your customer experience, exactly what Dick was talking about, right, with GWU and the FAA. They are both using the Digital Workplace Advanced to give a much better customer experience so that their customers are getting more things done quicker in a more automated fashion. And again, because it's all in one place, and we'll talk about this a little during the demo, they're following the company guidelines. They're not going, one-offs. They're not going down to the local corner store. You're going through that standard catalog. So again, you're following the company's governance and leadership. All of this has to be driven by data and analytics. If you don't know what you're doing, you can't improve on what you're doing. You can guess you think you know how things are going on, but without the data to measure it, how do you know you're working on the right things? How do you know where time's getting wasted? How do you know where the redundancies are? How can you optimize things? How do you know what to put into DWPA as an automation so you can free up people for other things? Of course, technology does come into digital transformation because by implementing technology better, and this is really where BMC is going with the Helix TSOM and ITSM or DSM, however you want to call them, by merging those things together up in Helix, by having everything available in the cloud, having those integrations available, being able to tie things together. We're going to talk about that more later as well. But the technology, of course, is a part of it because how can you work together more smoothly if your technology is not supporting that? But you have to know where you're going. You can't just do technology. You got to have the governance and leadership to drive you where you're going. And then digital literacy. We all fail at this. I'll just say, there are some great companies out there that don't. But we've all worked at companies that roll out a new service, a new product, a new whatever, and they don't roll out the training, right? They say, oh, great, we got this great tool that, let's say all our salespeople are going to use this tool to do X, Y, Z, and it's all going to be wonderful, but they forget to give salespeople the expertise to use that tool best. And so it rolls out, half of them adopt it very well, half of them don't. And the tool, then you limp along, you're like, well, maybe this tool doesn't work. So the tool that doesn't work, have we not introduced it properly into the organization so people are leveraging it, communicating on it, doing what they need to do, and then, of course, giving feedback so you continue to improve it. Again, back to governance and leadership. A tool is just a tool, but is it advancing the governance and leadership goals? Where is it helping? Where is it hindering? All those kinds of things. But we've all been there in the past. Hopefully your companies are great right now. I've worked in way too many companies in the past where you roll something out and it just flops. I was at one company where we rolled out a CRM system. This was several companies ago. So don't go looking at my LinkedIn. I don't think you'll be able to tell from there. Several companies ago, a CRM system was rolled out 3 times before it finally got adoption, just because technology people weren't talking with the business people and there wasn't the governance and leadership. So how you do these things becomes important. Probably labor that point way too much, but it's one of my little bugaboos. So when we talk about digital transformation, there's a lot of curves out there, right? A lot of maturity curves, a lot of ways of doing things. And so the 6 stages of digital transformation, this is coming from Altimeter, is another way to do it. Business as usual, you just keep on doing, you feel like you're doing fine, everything's working, the technology you have in hand is working. But then you start having people experiment, right? Maybe the DevOps team brings in Jira and some HitChat servers because they're finding that's making their work more efficient. But maybe in another department, they're bringing in Slack because that's what they want to work with. And of course, those technologies are merging together. But you start getting these little pockets of experimentation from the leaders, from the people who want to try new things, and they start spreading around. But you got people talking in silos still. So then you want to get it more formalized. You want to start saying, well, this is great that you have some experimentation going on, but we do want to know that we're doing the right kinds of things, that we're analyzing them, we're looking at the outcomes, we're doing the right kinds of things. It really is a strategy, not just a means, right? Too often we just bring in new technology because it's a means, not a strategy. So how can we move to the strategy level? And that's when we start moving to the strategic area. We're learning from each other. We're collaborating. We're like, this works well for our team. Somebody else says, that doesn't work for our team. You just created us a bunch more work. You start talking together. How can we pull it together? And again, always tie it to the goals, the visions, and the strategies. Over time, as you continue to do this, you start converging. Everybody's following more or less the same road path. You're starting to see better customer service, customer satisfaction. The infrastructure is making sense. There's less redundancy. You're able to bring in new items in an agile fashion and really be able to bring in new technologies or new services or new businesses that you're going into in a convergent form, so it happens better, faster, hopefully less expensive, but at least it's driving your goals, your initiatives, all being aimed at the same end place. And then over time, hopefully this becomes routine. Right? It takes a while. What do they say? You have to do something 10 times before it becomes a habit. So you have to do these things a while. You have to get the groups together. You have to expect some failures. Like that CRM system coming in 3 times. There will be times when the groups just aren't working or how you put things together isn't working. You need to go ahead and adapt and keep working on it. With the agile philosophies kind of behind all this, because everything's converging together, the agile philosophies are, let's try some things, let's give it a try, let's move on if it doesn't work. Let's not enshrine something that we're doing just because we've already done it or we've always done it this way. So being able to act upon the trends and then being able to adapt quickly becomes part of it. Ideally, over time, your confidence level on new things coming in, that adoption of digital, that becomes better. And the low points where things aren't working become those dips, those valleys become a lot shorter. Janine, I don't know if you're going to be able to get yourself off mute. Do you want to add anything in on this slide at this point? Yay, there's Janine. She's our expert on digital transformation.
I think you're summing it up nicely, and I think how this relates to BMC Helix is that, you may be at various stages of implementing the product. You may be just at the very early stages of recognizing you need the products. You could be further along, saying we're ready to invest in this and we're ready to standardize and move this across our enterprise. But wherever you are, you're going to face different types of challenges. And I think that one of the things that we want to get across during this webinar is that RightStar understands different frameworks that you can implement in your organization to help you through these stages to get completely to the innovative and adaptive stage. And ITIL 4 is one of the frameworks that you may be looking at. So if you're at ITIL 3, ITIL 4 is a framework, this is a new version of the framework. They are modeling, and the foundation of Agile 4 is on lean and agile practices. So it's much more of a flexible framework than ITIL 3. And then the piece that we're going to show you at the end is another type of framework, a scaled agile framework, so that if you're focusing on services, you may be talking about ITIL 4. If you're focusing on development activities to support your services, you might be focusing on the scaled agile framework. And so the purpose of putting this into the presentation is that it definitely connects with wherever you are in your journey with the BMC tool set.
Exactly. And when we start talking specifically about the BMC tool set, you're probably like, when we come from the old, and I came from this, the old time ITSM background, we sometimes get very buried in our IT, but we don't understand that IT has a role in this whole transformation. It's not just a DevOps side in terms of Agile and all the words. ITIL 4, Agile, everything works together, and IT is absolutely essential to see, to deal with the impact of this business transformation. I actually copied this from some comments from a senior manager of web strategy at BMC, and she's talking about how the IT professionals are really noticing this. The mobile devices and the apps are changing employee expectations. The whole cloud computing, where you deploy something, becomes a lot less important, or maybe more important because you have to monitor. If it's not deployed on a premise, it's deployed out in the cloud. Got to start monitoring this. And this is where you may have departments who are starting to provision things in the cloud without informing IT. So IT needs to know what's going on out there to, again, reduce redundancies, ensure controls, ensure security, but IT does not want to get in the way. IT has no desire to be considered the slowdown. IT wants to help the business expand, but help in the right way, again, with those leadership, the global strategic vision. Work with the business leaders to understand where the business is going. So IT is there supporting them, not hindering them, but also, because we all know how I came from the IT perspective, I know how business leaders can be. They sometimes have a great dream, but IT has to say, that's a great dream. Now let's talk about how we can get there and what elements of the dream we might need to modify a little bit, because really it's just not technically feasible yet to transport people from Boston to New York in 2 seconds. But let's talk about how we can do this. But we have to know where their vision is. We have to know where they're going. They're wanting faster transportation for their customers. Okay, let's see what we can do to help. You can even relate this down to the apps that you order pizza from. Domino's did a big switch to start doing the mobile apps when they started putting Domino's out there. How best to do this, how to let people order their pizza, get the orders into the right place, know what's going on, all those kinds of things. IT was there to help. It's a great advance on the business. IT was helping, didn't hinder. So that's all about IT needs to understand its role. And I think most IT people do know that this transformation is going on, but we're also the ones who have been burned a lot of times. So we have good lessons, but we need to, again, focus on the strategic vision and say how it can be done, not just say, what are you doing? Sorry, a little bit of personal soapbox there. But then you get to BMC Helix. How does this help IT help the business? Again, because it's out in the cloud, and because of what we're going to see in another slide, exactly what BMC is doing on Helix, but because they're expanding the technologies that are available out there, that gets IT out of the babysitting the box role. IT doesn't need to just sit there and make sure the boxes are up and running. Let BMC handle that up in their data centers. Let BMC handle the integration technologies. Let IT decide what should be integrated. When should we pass things around? What services should we be offering out there? And as Jenine said, BMC is optimizing for ITIL 4. They will always be up on data and ITIL, but also because we know Agile, or BMC knows that Agile is a big thing right now, tying it in on the TSOM side, tying in with Agile tools, making sure we can follow those Agile philosophies, because there's a lot of synergy between the two, between some of the other things you're hearing out there around digital transformation. So BMC Helix, because it's up on the cloud, is going to allow you to start offering some of these things pretty quickly, as opposed to the long ramp-up time to go ahead and start offering some of these products all joined together. We've all had those. We have customers right now that have long lead-outs. FFA and GW are doing great things with Digital Workplace Advance. They didn't do that on day one. The hope is, as we start moving more people into BMC Helix, because more technology is going to be available very quickly, we can speed up the process of adoption of these latest tools. So this is what Dick talked about right at the beginning, where BMC is going, the convergence of ITSM and ITOM. I kept calling it TSOM. I get my initials all mixed up, but tying together the ITSM, the service desk side, with the NOC side, all up in Helix. And so now they're all in the same place. They're talking to each other. As you discover things, you're popping it into ITSM and back and forth, et cetera. So this is not new necessarily, right? Those of you that have used BMC products know we've been able to tie together the operations, the network monitoring products with the ITSM Remedy product for a long time. I think we call it service resolution, but the TrueSight products, the network monitoring products, can pop tickets into ITSM and not just say there's a problem, but they're going to tell you what is the configuration item that caused the problem, and what are the configuration items that are impacted by this problem. So IT has at their fingertips in those tickets what caused it and who's impacted by it, what the service levels are around it. That's been around for a while, but it takes longer to set all this up when you're going on premise. When you're up in the cloud, the technology's all there, the integrations are there, it can happen a lot faster. And ITOM focuses on what ITOM focuses on, ITSM focuses on what they're focusing on, but you customers. We want to make sure those SLAs are correct. We're working on the most important strategic customers first, but that we are getting to all the customers within the SLAs we promised them. And now you're looking at strategic items. How are we doing our business? How are we focusing it appropriately for our customers and expectations? All customers are important, absolutely. But for some customers, we've made certain promises. Other customers made other promises. We need to meet those. So again, over time, you're starting to converge, right? Everybody's understanding the business value. Everybody's understanding the customers, how they tie into our business portfolio. We're prioritizing that value, et cetera. So the BMC Helix tools take you along this way. Not going to do everything. You still need people. You still need processes. You still need vision. You still need to talk to each other, but they make it a lot easier to go through the digital transformation process. So we've been talking about Agile. We've been talking about ITIL 4. We've been talking about digital transformation. I'm going to have Jenine come back on. Hopefully she can unmute again and talk about another way to approach this digital transformation. She's been working within RightStar. We're looking at this. We're working with the SAFE Foundation, which I'm finding pretty intriguing because it's much more, it's a way that you can really start tying people together and getting people to talk together. But Jenine, you explained it so much better than I did last week. Can you talk about SAFE a little bit?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you. The Scaled Agile framework is really a way to bring your entire organization into looking at the work that's being done according to your value streams or your value chains. So ITIL 4 talks about value chains and how you're developing your services and essentially what are the stages and process and tools within that service. SAFE looks at it and they call them value streams, but essentially it's looking at the time from the starting point where your customer is recognizing the need for something, all the way through till the time when your customer receives value. And in turn, the company receives revenue based on delivery of that value. So both ITIL and SAFE are now focused on value co-creation. And what that really means is that you are co-creating value with your customer. You are working directly with your customer during discovery phases. You're having a customer-centric approach, and so what you'll see in the SAFE framework is this customer centricity. That's also in ITIL 4. So the nice part that I'm seeing in the environment is you are seeing a convergence of these frameworks. One of the things that I do like about SAFE is the idea that you're looking at from a program level or a portfolio level how decisions are being made on where to put the funding. So it may be that at any given time you're selecting a certain value stream to fund over another value stream, but you're focusing on the value that you're providing and value that you're generating, as opposed to just a list that maybe a service has that says, here we want to make these improvements, and then you have another team that's doing development and says, we want to make these improvements. And so each group has their own list and you're funding them as departments as opposed to looking at the whole from a value standpoint. So what I do like about SAFE is the focus on value streams. I do like the continuous exploration that happens during the continuous delivery pipeline. So you'll see what looks like a train going across the graphic there. And there's three parts of that. One is continuous exploration, which is really where you're working to engage your customer. So if you think about ITIL 4, engage is the first step in the value chain. How are you engaging your customer? How are you working with your product team, your services team to identify what needs to be done next? And then you have your continuous integration and continuous deployment, and eventually you have your release. So that's working between the ops teams and the people who are engaging. So you have your product managers engaging. You have your service teams engaging. Your help desks are engaging. How are you taking that information, and how are you bringing it back to the DevOps teams to make good decisions on which value you're going to create next? It creates a seamless integration, really, and I know that's a sort of a buzzword, seamless integration, but it does provide a nice conduit between your services and your operations teams and what actually needs to be done on the customer-facing side. So whether you're building software or product to support your services, or whether your product is actually what you're delivering to the customer. I do think that the merging of these frameworks provides a tremendous opportunity to have the people on the service side, ITSM, start to talk the same language as the people on the development side and be able to start putting in integrated tools that facilitate the movement of work across those value chains. And so when we start looking at the flow of work and try to identify waste that's happening in our systems, we do have a more holistic picture of that. And that's really what the Scaled Agile framework is supposed to do. So you start with Agile teams, and it could be Scrum teams, it could be teams working in Kanban, and you're making sure that those teams are connected with your people who are engaging with the customer. So whether it be the product team or the service team, that's always your starting point. Did you want to say any more about that, Anne?
Well, taking myself off mute works a lot better. No, I think that was a great summary. Did you want to add a little bit more with this slide, or we'll just leave it up as an eye chart for everybody? There'll be a quiz later. Yeah, put back on mute very briefly. Okay. There you go, yeah.
Thank you so much. One of the things that is new, and so if you are familiar with the Scaled Agile framework, it's currently on version 4.6. It's been around for quite a few years now, but they're going to be releasing version 5. And if you look at version 5, you can start to see how the pieces are coming together. You're going to start to see overlap between ITIL 4 and faith. So when you think about implementing your tools, as Anne showed you, there's multiple pieces of that, including governance, including leadership, including digital literacy. And this diagram starts to show how that actually, what SAFE 5 calls the disciplines that are part of lean and agile organizations. In particular, I think she talked about team and technical agility, so the ability to put everything on one platform so that your teams are technically able to quickly move things around. In particular, quickly see what's being monitored, quickly react on that so that you don't have your service desk, for example, completely blind to what's going on the IT monitoring side, and they don't know until the requests are actually starting to come in through your help desk that there's a problem. But instead, you bring that up front to your teams that are working directly with the customers, and they know the minute things start to go wrong, and they can act more quickly. And then again, combining that with the agile product delivery. So in particular, what I see for BMC Helix is the strength is bringing the two pieces together so that you do end up having organizational agility. You don't silo the functions and then somehow the service team has to come in and find the product manager and give them the list of things that they'd like, and then that gets put into another bigger list somewhere and it's not managed together. I really think that if your organization is really trying to transform into an organization that has mastered digital technology to serve customers, not only will BMC Helix help you because it's going to remove some of the technical obstacles, but applying a framework to what you're doing, again, whether it's just straight ITIL 4 or whether you're going to weave that into what's going on with your DevOps world and your Agile teams, and you use something like the Scaled Agile framework. I think it's worth looking at both sides of the house. So as you implement your tools, also understand what needs to happen in your governance, your process, your training to support the people who have to carry out their roles.
Thanks, Jenine. And there are workshops in the SAFE framework that can really help you start to pull this together and start your process of the digital transformation. So as Jenine said, whether you start with the ITIL workshops or whether you want to do the SAFE workshops or some kind of mix and match, RightStar does have the resources to help you and start walking down those 6 stages of the digital transformation. So we did mention ITSM. This isn't going to be a heavy demo type meeting, but we did at least want to show you a little bit in terms of the product these days in case you haven't seen it recently, so you can know why it is that Helix is helping companies like the FAA and GWU start doing some of that digital transformation. The Digital Workplace Advanced is meant to be a consolidated catalog. What that means is one place where people can go and get offerings that the company is offering out to them, whether it's an internal customer, external customer. The key thing is one place to go to get whatever you need. So it could be something like you just need VPN access. Let me go ahead and request this, put it through, answer my various questions, the right kinds of things get done. And that's pretty normal, right? For any kind of self-service portal, you can do those kinds of things. But you can see here we have things like I'd be able to change my healthcare. I can go off to a healthcare system that my HR team is using to go ahead and manage. Or maybe it's, it could even be a third-party system potentially that we're pushing out to. So one catalog, regardless of the back-end system. Maybe I need to send something through to the JIRA team. I found some bugs in something. I can go ahead and submit my bug from Digital Workplace Advanced. It's going to go straight over to the JIRA project, and the people can start working that. And I'm going to go ahead and get my updates out here on Digital Workplace Advanced. Then we start getting into the more fun things. Well, I don't know if they're fun, but they're fun to look at. Things like bundling your new employee bundle. When a new employee comes on, there's a whole bunch of things that can be included. I can go ahead and request these. Maybe I don't need the mobile phone, and I don't need, they're going to be working from home, so I don't need a workspace, but I want everything else in here. When I hit request now, it's going to walk through a series of prompts. It's going to go ahead and have me answer the things that need to be filled out, and it's going to create the fulfillment objects, whether in ITSM, maybe in JIRA, maybe in an HR system like Workday, whatever makes sense. It's going to create those provisioning objects so the right kinds of things can happen, but it's all done as a bundle. And then, of course, we can get to things like provisioning software even. Or let's say creating an Office 365 user. As somebody coming aboard, I want to automatically make them a user. I can go ahead and request that, put in what the information is going to be, and this will tie to the Office 365 system. So now you're getting a lot of power in the hands of the end user. They're able to do things faster. Hopefully things are happening more accurately, and they're still all being tracked, right? Going back to that, the analytics portion, I want to know when people are asking these things. I want to know what kinds of things are going on. I think a great example of this is something BMC did years and years and years ago. They realized, because they have the Executive Briefing Center, they have on-site meetings, customers are constantly coming aboard, they were getting a lot of tickets in saying, I need Wi-Fi access for my guest. Well, BMC automated that. That was one of the earliest, back when it was my IT, one of the earliest requests they put out here was let's go ahead and put in this information. And in the BMC world, when this goes to the BMC system, it auto-provisions the number of accounts, sends an email to the person who requested it. So when the BMC sales rep meets you at the Executive Briefing Center or at the Training Center or wherever you're coming in at, you're going to be handed your guest Wi-Fi access, your password for your mobile device so you can go ahead and connect up. That's all going to be available. And then at the end of the time, it gets deprovisioned, which is also very important, of course, as well. So there are so many things you can start doing here to, again, make your customers happier, which is part of the digital transformation, guide the business services. You want to make sure that this Wi-Fi request, that the access does get shut down at the right time, and again, all the other kinds of fulfillment actions that happen out here. The other thing you hear BMC talk a lot about is smart IT. Smart IT is the new skin on the back end. Those of you that have used Remedy before, the Remedy ITSM, know of all the power of the back end. Well, with Smart IT, there's a new skin on top of that back end to make things faster for your support analyst. So very quickly, I can come in here and see various things. If I go to my dashboard, I'm going to see, how we're doing on service delivery here, what things are open, any messages I have, etc. I can come to my ticket console, start working my tickets. If you haven't seen the Smart Recorder before, this is where it all started. Those of you that have used Remedy before know in the old days, there were lots of pop-ups. There aren't pop-ups anymore. Mary Mann calls in. She's having a problem with VPN access. Immediately I can see who Mary is. I can see what assets she has. I can see open tickets. And because we've got some linkages with our event management system, I can see there's actually an outage of VPN, so I can let Mary know right away, yes, we know there's an outage. We hope to have it up soon. I can tie to knowledge articles, duplicate tickets, all that kind of thing very quickly. Now you're increasing the efficiencies of the service desk, plus you're getting the information in their hands so they don't have to do a lot of running around. They don't have to worry about who Mary is. They've got that all right in front of them. And that's where Smart IT started, but expanded well beyond that, giving you a lot of power, again, to take things quickly, easily, and yes, this is the same on the mobile client. The Smart IT and Digital Workplace both have mobile apps, so you can have that same experience on the mobile client, which of course everybody's starting to move to as we all work from traveling, from driving from place to place, airports, wherever we're going. We need to have our mobile devices be able to work with us too. All part of that digital transformation, which I know I keep saying it's not just about technology, but technology is a piece of it, a large piece of it, so you can focus on all the other things. Finally, of course, the analytics. We always need to mention that the smart reporting that comes with the ITSM solution these days, it's based upon a product called Yellowfin, yellow like the color, fin like the fish, and it's going to give you your actionable analytics. Here I'm looking at my services. How available are my services as a business service owner? Maybe I have some business, I may have commissions tied to this or my bonuses tied to my service availability. Well, this one's kind of going down in June. I need to check into that. Why did that happen? Maybe that affected me, or more importantly, affected my customers, which is why I'm bonused on it. But I need to make sure my services are available, the right kinds of things are happening. I want to look at it more from the incident management perspective. How are things going on? Where are my big times going on? How are my groups impacted? I've got drill downs. I've got things I can bring out of here. I can share these reports with other people. I can comment on these reports. You've got a whole social experience going on in the smart reporting that you can leverage to, again, make sure these analytics aren't just sitting out there. You know, was this in 91, 92? I managed a help desk at a large company, and every month I got a set of reports from the mainframe about, I don't know, our spending and our resources. To be honest, I got these reports. There were a lot of pages. I tended to just stick them in the corner of the desk, and I didn't really look at them because that was my first management job. I didn't know what to do with those reports. They were old. They were from the prior month. They weren't actionable. But having the stuff right in front of you makes you start acting on them, makes you start looking at them. It makes it more dynamic. I might have paid attention to those reports and done a lot better in that first management job if I had had reports that were more actionable, more real time, more what's going on now, not what happened last month or last quarter. So smart reporting gives you that. A lot of ways to slice and dice the data, and that, again, helps with that digital transformation. So we just went through a whole lot of slides, a little bit of demo. Again, it's all around the digital transformation type area. If this is something that's of interest to you, if you want to maybe start talking with, you probably already know your RightStar sales rep, but if you don't, contact sales@rightstar.com or give us a call. If you think your company is ready to start moving in that direction, or you've already started moving, you just aren't sure on the next steps to take, you're looking at the ITIL 4, you're looking at the SAFE, you're looking at Agile, you're going, what do I do next? Give us a call. We'd love to walk you through that. Dick, didn't know if you had any final words here at the end to wrap up?
Well, sure. Thank you. Great job, Anne, and of course, Jenine, too. There's a chatbot. Well, I said chatbot, but there's actually a chat box, and you can enter a question there, or there's also a Q&A box, and that's where we look for questions. So if you have a question, now would be a good time to do that. I wanted to ask just a general question before we sign off, and that is, there's this whole thing called digital transformation. We've talked about that quite a lot, and I think this might be a little bit unfair, but oftentimes what happens is that when you buy legacy software, you tend to just put it in a corner somewhere, and then after a while it gets a little bit stale, and you say, hey, this isn't working very well anymore. I need to do something else. And I think you could make a pretty good argument that had you continued to upgrade your enterprise software throughout the whole life cycle of the software, you wouldn't really need as much of a digital transformation because you'd already be on the latest and greatest. And Anne, is that a valid statement, or Jenine, does that make sense? And I think the reason that we have digital transformation is just because nobody's done anything. Is that right?
Right. So, yeah, a lot of times, let me get back to, as you're doing this transformation, because technology is a piece of it, if you're sitting on older software that just hasn't leveraged the newest stuff in the industry, it can look like a lot of work to bring it up to date, et cetera. And that's the beauty of Helix, is you're going to be up to date, and as BMC is adding in the new things, the chatbot, the Innovation Studio, or some of the latest things they added in, they're going to be available to you. So I think you're right, Dick. That helps get people moving forward and not just, well, yeah, that would be nice, but our software just doesn't do that, and we don't want to upgrade it, so we'll just kind of ignore it for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that
Great.
from my perspective, having the technology in place is certainly something that people are expecting these days, right? So if you start thinking of it in the product management world, the idea of table stakes, basically just what you need to play in the environment. You need tools like chatbot these days. You need self-service for your customers these days, just to be in an environment where you're offering services at a level where people are expecting them. The challenge is to take that tool that you are implementing and implement the right features at the right time for your customers and for your organization. So training people, for example, when you implement a knowledge base, how do you manage a knowledge base? How do you make good choices on where you put metadata so that when a customer does search, they're finding the right things that are relevant to them? So knowledge management is a whole discipline that is part of digital literacy that is often missed. So we implement the tools, but at some point, they're only as good as what we're doing behind the scenes to manage the data and the information. So along the continuum, when you start to converge, when you start to realize how interconnected all the pieces are in your organization, the key here is to also help people work better in a world where their work is very transparent and immediate and available the minute they're putting it out there, which is the digital literacy portion that often is left out. So while your tools need to be up to date, there is also a shift in how people work that needs to be considered as you implement the tools.
Okay.
I think that's a great comment. I'm thinking here internally at RightStar, you're never done with digital transformation, right? So we're continually looking at our tools. We're continually looking at where we store our knowledge. We're continually looking at how we work with those. Say, are we doing the right? Do we have the right tools in place to support the RightStar infrastructure, or the RightStar ecosystem? And we're meeting in January. We're having a 2-day meeting too, and that's one of the topics on the agenda. So let's go back. Let's look at everything we've got going, so that as we're moving through strategic, converging, and innovative, adaptive, and depending what you're talking about, I would say we're at different stages depending on what we're doing. But yeah, we're continually going back and looking at that, because what's the point of rolling out a great tool if nobody knows how to use it? Is our knowledge in the right place given what we're doing now? Do we have the right sets of knowledge? So I think that's great, Jenine. That's a great thing to bring up. We're doing it right here internally, and you're never going to be done with digital transformation. You're just going to get a lot better at being innovative and adaptive with the tools you have.
Okay. Thanks very much. Here's another question that just came in, and Jenine, this one looks like it's for you. It says here, we are an agile agency. That is, we use Scrum and sprints. So why do we need SAFe?
That's a great question. So agile, when you say you're agile, generally that means that your teams adopt the Agile Manifesto. So there's a set of values and principles behind that. The fact that you're working in sprints means that your team probably has adopted a form of Scrum. And those are very good team-level practices. The challenge comes in when you have multiple teams, and now you have to figure out where you're going to put your funding, where you're going to put your effort. And in the traditional way of working, we tend to do that through cost centers, or we tend to do that by budget allotted to departments, for example. And what organizations are finding is that if you look across multiple teams, and let's say across 10 teams, if you start distributing money equally between the types of work in each department, you're really not focusing on the value provided to your customer. You're focusing on the prioritization within that silo. And what the shift is here with ITIL 4 or with SAFe is that when you start looking at the program level or the portfolio level, you start making decisions across the value stream, not the department. So if you think about your value stream or your value chain, and you think about how many different departments may have to touch the customer experience, if you only budget based on what the department wants, you might be missing the high value that is an opportunity that another department has, but maybe it's 20 down their list and their team's never going to get to it. So you are unable to realize the high value items because of the way you're organized. So something like SAFe allows you to look across value streams as opposed to across departments or across siloed budget, budget cost centers, and make good decisions about where that money is going to be spent based on the impact of the customer and the value received to the organization.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you. So we just need to figure out how to get started with SAFe then. It sounds like Agile is important, but really to make it work effectively throughout an organization, you need SAFe then.
Well, and I think that's the point, right? So SAFe stands for Scaled Agile. So there's other scaling frameworks out there. This is it's not unique necessarily to SAFe. It's a Scaled Agile framework for enterprise. There's other frameworks out there. You'll hear about LESS is a very popular, so scaled Scrum. You'll hear about that. But all have the same premise, which is at the team level, teams are being, finding great success using Scrum or using different types of Agile techniques. So there's more than just Scrum. They're finding great success at that. However, when you start to ask the management or the executive level, where are you placing value across your enterprise, it's very difficult to answer that question today in many cases. So it's a way to take the power that your teams are experiencing, the energy your teams have in succeeding with Agile, and scale that throughout your enterprise.
Okay. Thanks very much. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions, so I wanted to say thank you to Jenine and Ann. Just great presentation. Really appreciate that, and thank you all the attendees out there for joining us today. As you know, we